Peace, ladies and gentlemen. Akiam and Akwaf, just coming through again with another segment. And this came to the forefront of my mind because I was just reading up on an article in regards to Martin Luther King, and I felt that I should do a video on Martin Luther King to expose the truth about Martin Luther King, because a lot of our people been under heavy maintenance in regards to the ideologies that's being pushed in this society. And a part of the ideologies are integration and wanting to come together with all the other races. And that started at the behest of MLK, or pawns that they use, such as MLK. And it's all based in communism and Marxism. And as some of you know or don't know, Martin Luther King went to school for communism. He went to the Highlander Folk School for communism. And that school was founded by a man named Miles Horton and another man named James Dombrowski. And basically they aligned themselves with Martin Luther King throughout, because they wanted to, put the capstone on what they wanted to fulfill in regards to integrating people by means of communism. And the reason why communism is wrong is because it's basically something that comes from Marxism. If you read about the Marxist manifesto, the Karl Marx manifesto, in which it basically implores people to look for the government for assistance because of the forsaking of our culture. And that is what they utilize from the civil rights movement. And they use guys like Martin Luther King to do so. And Martin Luther King was a pawn until he was killed. He didn't find out that he was a pawn until he was killed. And the thing about Martin Luther King is, he meant well to a degree, but he didn't believe in the scriptures. He said that the book was, it was fake. It was all a bunch of fables. And a lot of our people have that same rhetoric in regards to the scriptures, because the Most High haven't given them the understanding. And that's why, our people are in the condition that they're in today. And going back to Martin Luther King, he was somebody that was set up by the government, the CIA and the FBI. And they had surveillance on him. So they're able to corroborate information that's based in, his whereabouts, and they're able to conceal it. And the thing about this information, and it won't be revealed until 2027, assuming that this society is still around in 2027, it won't be revealed until 2027 in regards to it being revealed in full under the Freedom of Information Act. And there's like 845 pages of information regarding Martin Luther King that a lot of people don't know. And it's labeled obscene, meaning, out of the element of normality. You feel what I'm saying? And basically, just to give you a little backdrop on, MLK, we know that his real name is Michael King. And his father's real name was Michael King. And they got their name from Martin Luther. And Martin Luther was he was a great reformer. You feel what I'm saying? He was somebody that was set up to, I think he wrote a piece called the 95 Theses. Yeah, the 95 Theses, in which it was basically aligned with the fall of black rulership in Europe. And he was just a great reformer of the 1500s. And I believe that was written in 1517. That's where Martin Luther King was able to get his name from. He admired Martin Luther. And Martin Luther King Jr., or Michael King, he was very bright. Like, he went to college at a very, very early age. I believe he was like 15 when he went to college. And what people don't know is, he was a sex addict. Like, he loved to, quote unquote, fuck bitches. Like, let's just keep it real. He loved to do that because that was just something, that was a demon that was on him. And he had a crew in college known as the Wrecking Crew, or the Wreckers, because they was known as a crew who had sex with a lot of women. So they looked at it as, we wreck girls. And this just goes to show you that this was a part of Martin Luther King from the jump. You know what I mean? In regards to the accusations that's been put on him from the FBI surveying him and understanding his whereabouts and knowing where he is, and them keeping an eye on him. Like, he was into a lot of orgies with the SCLC. He had a lot of sexual, I want to say anomalies. You feel what I'm saying? Like, he did a lot of things that was based in depravity because he was a sex addict. And Martin Luther King was just a pawn. He was just somebody that was set up by means of, the government powers to bring forth communism and Babylonianism and integration. Because when you utilize a tactic known as Marxism or Luciferianism, or just in general terms communism, that basically implores people to look for the government for assistance so they can easily forsake their culture. And that's what happened in this society with particularly black people. With the whole understanding that this society is corporate. This society is not sovereign. This society is corporate. And it became corporatized in 1871. And in 1913, with the act of the Federal Reserve, that made this society more based in us having to be debt slaves, because the money that's owed to the Federal Reserve is at, like, I want to say $20-something trillion. You feel what I'm saying? And the reason why that is because we live in a communist credit-based system in which, based off of your prognosticated labor, you just have to pay off damn near 50 to 60% of what you make and more, because your birth certificate is a bond, and your social security number is a bond, and basically you get funds that get compiled based off of your lifetime. You probably got $1 million in your like saved up as far as your bond when it comes to your birth certificate being held in Sweden. And basically in 1963, when gold was outlawed, and in 1965 when silver was outlawed, that caused inflation. And inflation is just basically something that the government utilizes for them to continue to print money. And when you print money, that just acts as an increase in debt, because there's nothing substantiating the money. Real money is substantiated by gold and silver. When gold and silver was outlawed, that's when you had an increase in debt. And during the time of England, people had substantive money, as far as them having the ability to live in an economy that was based in, sovereignty to a degree, or that was based in a stable economy. You feel what I'm saying? And basically the government just utilizes these tactics because it's all about the money. You feel what I'm saying? So MLK, going back to him, his father, I think his father was associated with the NAACP. Yeah, the NAACP. And his mother, she went to Spelman. And what people don't know about Spelman is the name comes from a white woman named Laura Spelman. And Laura Spelman was married to a Rockefeller. And you know what the Rockefellers are. You know about them as far as them controlling the bank, controlling the money. So basically, the Rockefeller Foundation was an institution that funded these HBCUs. And we know what we see in these history books. It's all bullshit. So this is how you know that this society is based in the control of these people, in which they deceive the masses. You feel what I'm saying? Because it's all a part of psychological programming. Now, going back to MLK, basically he was set up, and he was set up to bring forth what the communist parties wanted. You feel what I'm saying? And he was obscene. He was a reprobate. You know what I mean? He wasn't a righteous person. Even though he meant well to a degree, he wasn't a righteous person. He did a lot of obscene things. I remember I read up on something where it was reported that police had found him in the hallway, butt ass naked, trying to find prostitutes in the hallway. Like, he was just that out there with it. You feel what I'm saying? It's just that people don't know about this because it's all a part of the agenda. And you have these media news cycles who try to make it seem as if what was corroborated by the FBI is insubstantial. How can you say that something that came from the Central Intelligence Agency and the FBI is unsubstantial? Like, they had ties to him. They had surveillance on him, so they know what he was doing. You feel what I'm saying? And basically, this goes back to them coming across information on JFK, and basically the information that they saw on JFK, they slipped across information also on Martin Luther King, so they felt as though it needed to come out in a roundabout way, or in a way, period. It's the Most High letting us know the truth about these people, man. And this led me to want to bring out a verse in Jeremiah, the 23rd chapter. So let's get Jeremiah 23. And we're going to get the 25th verse, where it says, I have heard what the prophet said, that prophesy lies in my name, saying, I have dreamed. I have dreamed. So what is that in reference to? That's talking about Martin Luther King. And that I have a dream speech was written by Stanley Levinson, the gay civil rights leader. And he was aligned with Stanley Levinson and Bayard Rustin. Oh, I'm sorry. Bayard Rustin was the gay civil rights leader. Stanley Levinson was the Caucasian Jew that was a lawyer who aligned himself with Martin Luther King. You know what I mean? Because they had ties to Martin Luther King. They was with him in regards to his whereabouts, as far as him, having orgies, him going on the road, him with his speeches and so on and so forth. You feel what I'm saying? And just in regards to the civil rights movement, like Rosa Parks, she was set up too. As far as that story about her not giving up her seat, that wasn't her. That was a woman by the name of Claudette Colvin. Rosa Parks was just used as the woman that was set up to resist giving up her seat, because it made it look more better coming from an older woman who wasn't pregnant, because Claudette Colvin was 14 years old and she was pregnant. So it wouldn't have looked right. You feel what I'm saying? They had to utilize her because it's all a part of the Hegelian dialectic. They utilized tactics in order for them to bring forth the means of bringing together what they want to bring together in regards to them having to deceive people. You feel what I'm saying? So it's important for us to understand, like, Martin Luther King, he was a communist. He went to school for communism. You know what I mean? He went to school for communism. And the civil rights movement was all based in falsification. It was all a falsehood. Just like the Black Lives Matter movement, which is just based in the exaltation of homosexuals and lesbians, so on and so forth. It's not for black men. You can even go on their website and see what it says. It doesn't have nothing to do with black men, because it's funded by Caucasian Jews. Anything that's funded or owned or has the authorization by Caucasian Jews is not substance. It's not based on any substance. It's not conducive for the black man or the plight of so-called black people. You feel what I'm saying? Because it's all based in deceiving us. It's all based in deception. Now, I mean, when you had I think you had in 1952 you had the Brown versus Board of Education, in which it was part of desegregating the schools. But with Plessy versus Ferguson, which was in 1896, that was based in separating the schools. That should have stood. That should have stood. You feel what I'm saying? 1955, you had the Montgomery bus boycott, I believe. Yeah, 1955. Yeah, that was the Montgomery bus boycott. 1957, you had the SCLC. You feel what I'm saying? So this was around the time where they really started to push MLK and control him until he was met with his demise in 1968. And when he was rising to prominence, with the aid of Philip A. Randolph and Bayard Rustin, they aided him in certain speeches. They aided him in certain gesticulation, so on and so forth. And Martin Luther King, he had great oratorical skills, but he didn't believe in most of what he was conveying. It was just all based in trying to bring together the ideology of communism, or more so Babylonianism, or just integration, period. You feel what I'm saying? And that's what they got achieved. But being that we living in the last days, a lot of these things are being revelatory unto us. So it's important for us to understand what's going on in this world. And the reason why I use Martin Luther King is because Martin Luther King is probably the most famous person that's set up to deceive black people. You feel what I'm saying? Malcolm X was more conducive to us, because he was about separating from the white man. You feel what I'm saying? Even though he was a pawn to a degree by the Islamic movement, like the Nation of Islam. But that's a whole nother video. But basically, he meant well. He was aligned with an ideology that was based in something that was substantive, even though I don't agree with Islam or nothing like that. At least they have ideologies that's based in righteousness. It's just a religion that comes from the pagan god the moon god, so on and so forth. But that's a whole nother video. But just going back to Martin Luther King, if you look at a picture on Google and you see like Martin Luther King on a balcony with Jesse Jackson and other people, you see certain people with ties and you see certain people with no ties. The people that didn't have ties on, they knew what was going to happen to Martin Luther King. The people that did have ties on, they didn't know. You feel what I'm saying? So that just all ties into the quote unquote, conspiratorial aspect of what went on as far as who killed Martin Luther King, because I don't believe it was James Earl Ray who killed Martin Luther King. You feel what I'm saying? They just framed him. They set him up. They threw him behind the jail for 99 years. He couldn't even give a deposition or nothing. They just threw him under the jail because they didn't want it to come forth that they set the man up. They set him up to get killed. Or they wanted to use him, and when they was done using him, they said, we're going to kill you off. And that's what they do in this society. They use you and they kill you off when they don't need you in regards to certain ideologies and mores and credos that they want to come to pass. You feel what I'm saying? So I just want to give this article real quick, or just read up on this article and all that. So this is from the BBC. Explosive Martin Luther King documents admit JFK files. A secret FBI dossier on civil rights leader Martin Luther King alleges that he had a string of affairs and other sexual aberrations. What is a sexual aberration? What is an aberration? Something that's foreign to someone that indulges in it. And it's basically labeled in conjunction with obscene behavior or depravity. So Martin Luther King was into sexual aberrations, meaning, abnormal sexual things, as far as him trying, men on men, probably fellatio with another man, or him receiving fellatio from another man. That's what they did as far as them having them orgies in the SCLC. That's what they did, believe it or not. Martin Luther King was a sex addict. He was a sex addict. He had many different affairs while he was on the road cheating on his wife. You feel what I'm saying? That's what he was. It is dated just 3 weeks before Dr. King's assassination in April 1968. The file was released in a tranche of documents relating to the assassination of John F. Kennedy, released on Friday. Kennedy is not referenced in the file, and it is not clear why it was kept secret for almost 50 years. And the reason why he wasn't referenced in the file was because they wanted to focus on Martin Luther King. That's why. They wanted to focus more on MLK. There is no evidence that any of the claims in the report were verified. Its cover shows it was assessed in 1994 by an FBI task force on the JFK assassination, which concluded none of the document should be released. Many of the allegations contained in the paper appear to be reports of private conversations between others or hearsay report third hand. One allegation that King had a mistress in California with whom he fathered a child. The man probably got many different children in the world based off of how he was rolling. Know what I mean? Was attributed to a very responsible Los Angeles individual in a position to know. Among its other accusations are that Dr. King was surrounded by advisors with strong links to the Communist Party USA, which is true. His statements were always subject to approval by the alleged communist sympathizers, which is true. He was a secret supporter of communism, a wholehearted Marxist, Karl Marx. His organization, the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, the SCLC, set up a tax dodge to raise funds for his activities. Dr. King took part in drunken sex orgies, yes he did, and coerced young women to participate. He had love affairs with at least 4 women, including folk singer Joan Baez. The list of alleged indiscretions would likely have been deeply problematic for the civil rights leader if it had been made public in 1968. Of course, they wanted to hide that. But like I said, being that we living in the last days, a lot of things are being revealed unto us at the behest of the Heavenly Father, under the auspices of the Heavenly Father. The paper paints Dr. King in an extremely negative light, despite his receipt of the Nobel Peace Prize. And in 1964, when before he was going to receive his Nobel Peace Prize, as said, the police had found him butt ass naked, trying to find prostitutes. Like shit is crazy. Dude was just on another level with it. But continuing on, despite his receipt of the Nobel Peace Prize and his contributions to passing the Civil Rights Act for 4 years previously, it is not entirely clear why the dossier was commissioned, but several pages of the 20-page document were concerned with Mr. King's upcoming Washington Spring project, which was scheduled for the coming months. It warned that despite Dr. King's history of calling for peaceful protests, the combined forces of the communist influence and the black nationalists advocating violence give the Washington Spring Project a potential for an extremely explosive situation. Dr. King was killed before the planned march. A slow thinker with abnormal sexual preferences. Abnormal. Despite Dr. King's historical reputation as a skilled speaker, and yeah, like I said, he was a great orator. Like, he had great oratorical skills. But if you're trying to deceive the masses, then of course you're going to go above and beyond to make it seem as if, you really about what you say you're about, but you're really not. You're just a pawn. And that's what he was. Despite Dr. King's historical reputation as a skilled speaker, the FBI file claimed that other advisors approved everything Mr. King said. Yeah. Stanley Levison, Bayard Rustin, A. Philip Randolph, Ralph Abernathy. Know what I mean? King is such a slow thinker, he is usually not prepared to make statements without help from someone, it reads. Linking Dr. King to communism, it claimed. King is a wholehearted Marxist who has studied it. Yeah, because he went to the school for Marxism. It's a picture of him. You could Google it. It's a picture of Martin Luther King sitting with other people that was a part of the SCLC for communism. And I forgot what the name. I forgot. I think it was. I looked it up. I think it was Carl and Ann Braden who basically funded that school, and they had brought a home for a black family, and it was a home that was in I believe it was Tennessee. Oh no, actually it was a home that was in Kentucky, and in the area where the black family lived at, it was surrounded by white people. You know what I mean? And basically, they blew up the home. As far as the Bradens, they blew up the home to make it seem as if white people did it, so they can have sympathy for the civil rights movement and the cause. And that's known as the Hegelian dialectic. You feel what I'm saying? That's what that's known as. It's the same thing that LeBron James did when they had made up a story about his house getting sprayed with the word nigger, even though there's no surveillance of it and there's no picture of it, because it's all a part of brand building. It's all agenda based. This society is duplicitous. It's duplicitous because they want black people to conform. They want us to conjure up this ideology known as equality so we can forsake our culture. That's what communism is based in, the forsaking of your culture. That's why this corporate society, they give us corporate designations like black or white or so on and so forth, because our real race is determined by our biblical forefathers. It's not determined by this current world as far as us being from a certain region and that being your race. No, that's not what your race is. But this society is flipped around, it's backwards, pursuant to Isaiah 29:16. So let's continue on. Excuse me. King is a wholehearted Marxist who has studied it, believes in it, and agrees with it. But because of his being a minister of religion, does not dare to espouse it publicly. Of course not, because it would go against brand. He had to be set up to be somebody that was about the Bible and so on and so forth. You feel what I'm saying? He was set up to deceive the masses. That's what he was set up to do. He was set up to deceive the masses. And then another part says, during the early 1960s, the CPUSA, the Communist Party, was striving to obtain Negro labor coalition to achieve its goals in this country. Martin Luther King Jr. and his organization were made to order to achieve these objectives. Yeah, that's a part of the Hegelian dialectic. You know, the ends have to meet the means, or the means have to meet the ends. And they come together for the capstone to be put on a pyramid. That's what it's about, man. The most salacious claims about Dr. King's sex life are contained in a dense collection of rumors in the final 2 pages. At a February 1968 workshop to train ministries in urban leadership, it is alleged one Negro minister in attendance to later express his disgust with the behind-the-scenes drinking, fornication, and homosexuality that went on at that conference. The Southern Christian Leadership Conference. Several Negro and white prostitutes were brought in from the Miami area. An all-night sex orgy was held with these prostitutes and some of the delegates. The document alleged that Dr. King also engaged in a 2-day drunken sex orgy. And y'all could look at this and say, you gonna just believe everything you read? Well, it's all about putting things in proper context. You have to contextualize your research. I'm not just going off of just this reading. Like, I've done a lot of research on this, and it's verified. The man was obscene. That's what he was. When one of the females shied away from engaging in an unnatural act, King and other of the males present discussed how she was to be taught and initiated in this respect. It added, it is a fact that King not only regularly indulges in adulterous acts, but enjoys the abnormal by engaging in group sexual orgies. Meaning, okay, I could be fucking this bra right here, but I'ma let this other bra go into this bra, and I'ma bend my ass over and let another man penetrate me. That's what went on. Pause. But that's what went on, man. That's what went on, bro. The man was obscene. So we have to let go of this affinity that we have with these people that set up as idols by our enemies, the Caucasian Jews, the fake Jews. You feel what I'm saying? It's important for us to understand what the truth is in this world and unplug from what we've been taught. Unplug from the matrix. Come out of her, my people. That's what it's about, man. We got to unplug ourselves from this world because this world is fucking duplicitous, man. It's duplicitous. And this is plain and simple right here. Little children, keep yourselves from idols. Amen. So be it. That's what amen means. It means so be it. Keep yourselves from idols. When it says little children, it's talking about the children of Israel. Because the Most High ordered us to not exalt people as far as putting them on a pedestal. Like you could admire someone for what they do, but don't put them on a pedestal. Don't infatuate yourself with them. It's just like a woman. You love your woman, but you don't put her on a pedestal like Adam did. Like Adam did with Eve. You don't put her on a pedestal like Solomon did or like David did. You love your woman. You cherish your woman. You honor your woman. You love your woman like Christ loved the church. You die for your woman. And the church meaning the congregants and as far as the disciples and the Sadducees of Israel. You die for your woman. But you don't fall in love to the point where you're infatuated with her because that goes into idolatry. And you put her before the Most High, and that's why a lot of strife between you and a woman continue because you're not loving her in the proper order. You feel what I'm saying? Because if you fall in love, that can go into you having an obsession with this woman, and if she leaves you, then you want to feel like you got to kill her or something like that. And that's idolatry. So it's important for us to unplug ourselves from this society and understand who we are according to the true understanding of the Heavenly Father, the God of Isaac, Abraham, and Jacob. You know what I mean? Jesus Christ, a.k.a. Yahweh Shah HaMashiach. It's important for us to understand these things, man. Very, very important. let's look at this video here real quick. Oh wow. Yeah, I forget you guys. I turned it on, put it on airplane mode because I didn't want to be distracted or anything like that. So let's just take it off airplane mode real quick. Come on with these ads and all that. Nobody trying to see none of these ads.
There's breaking news tonight coming from the National Archives and another batch of JFK assassination files. They include, though, an explosive FBI dossier not on JFK but on Dr. Martin Luther King. The Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. reflects then Director J. Edgar Hoover's deep suspicion and obsession with Dr. King, which was certainly no secret at the time, and it speaks to...
You see, they try to make it seem as if it's a J. Edgar Hoover issue. It's not necessarily a J. Edgar Hoover issue. It's a Martin Luther King issue. They wanted to make it seem as if this was something that was unsubstantiated because they feel as though J. Edgar Hoover had something to do with, you know, the falsification, the quote-unquote falsification of it.
Just how far he and the FBI went to try and discredit Dr. King. The dossier released today contains items that are both, and I say explosive, but they are unsubstantiated.
And the reason why the news is trying to protect Martin Luther King is because they're invested in maintaining the deception as far as, you know, the communism and so on and so forth, Marxism. They're basically aligned with that deception. So they're going to try to protect Martin Luther King. But Martin Luther King, you know, he was what he was. You know what I mean? And this information is going to be released in 2027 if it be the Lord's will, because the Most High could destruct this society at any moment now. But if it be the Lord's will, then that information will come out in 2027. But the understanding that Martin Luther King was what he was in regards to him being a reprobate and a sex addict is the truth. You know what I mean? So it is what it is.
CNN's Gary Tuckman joins us now with more. So what are you learning? What's in this stuff?
Well, Anderson, among the more than 600 documents released late today by the National Archives is this one, a never-before-seen file titled Martin Luther King Jr., A Current Analysis. It's dated March 12, 1968, and includes a number of explosive allegations about the civil rights leader who was assassinated 23 days after this report was first compiled. Among the claims detailed, Martin Luther King Jr. was involved in extramarital affairs and other sexual activities that, if true and revealed publicly, would have been devastating to Dr. King and his movement.
And this is just, you know, what I read up on the article. They just basically iterating the same thing, but they're trying to report it as if it's something that's not true, because they're invested in maintaining, you know, the propaganda. That's basically what it is. It's propaganda, man. Martin Luther King was a pawn. That's what he was. He was a pawn.
In addition, there are pages and pages detailing Martin Luther King and his organization, the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, with alleged ties to known communists, and finally details about supposed financial improprieties by Dr. King and the SCLC. Now, I want to stress that the FBI, under Director J. Edgar Hoover at the time, had been investigating Martin Luther King Jr. for years at this point in the hopes of finding damaging information, and that we...
Right, so if the FBI have been under... you know, if Martin Luther King was under surveillance by the FBI and the CIA, then that lends credence to this, because they followed him. It's the FBI. Like, you can't invalidate the FBI. They have everybody's files. They have files on all these celebrities, man. And it's shit that nobody really understands, as far as like people that don't read up on things, or information not being exposed to us. Like, even information that's not even exposed to the everyday researcher. Like somebody like myself or whatever. Like, they hide a lot of stuff from people when it comes to these celebrities, man. The FBI and the CIA, because they tap these people, man. All of these people are pawns. That's what they are. They're pawns. Every person that's in the entertainment industry is a pawn, especially the people in the media, because they just act as mouthpieces for what the Caucasian Jews want to come to pass. That's it. They don't have power. Donald Trump is not the one that utilizes certain credos and mores that come to pass. He's just controlled by the board of trustees, the international bankers, so on and so forth.
We have no way of corroborating these allegations.
So what does this have to do with the investigation of the assassin of JFK? Because I don't quite get why this document would have been in there with that.
Well, the reason why it's in there with that is because it just happened to be found within there. Like, as far as somebody who came across it, I think it was Trump who came across it, and it's like one of those things where you see a piece of paper on the floor and it has a lot of information in it about something that you was wondering. You feel what I'm saying? It's just something that they just came across and they said, "Oh shit, we could use this." So it just happened by happenstance. You know, the Most High wanted this to come out.
Exactly. That's one of the many questions we have tonight, Anderson. Considering the document has no mention of John F. Kennedy or his assassination, the only clue we have in this file marked secret is it's also stamped reviewed by the FBI JFK Task Force and dated May 8th, 1994, meaning it was reviewed by the Archives JFK Task Force 23 years ago, but kept secret until today.
There are still thousands of JFK assassination documents that have not been released, right?
Right, and that's also still unclear what's going on with that. We do know that last week President Trump sent out this tweet that read in part, "After strict consultation with General Kelly, the CIA, and other agencies, I will be releasing all JFK files other than the names and addresses of any person who is still living."
Right. You know, he came across it. And of course he came across it. He's the president. So, you know, he had that green light. And, you know, it is what it is. It's all just a way for people to understand the truth in this society, because we living in the last days, and, you know, this is what time it is, man. Everything is being revealed unto us. We are literally living in the book of Revelation. And of course, you know, revelation means to reveal. You know what I mean? So everything is being revealed unto us, like these idols that's set up so black people can be deceived. You know, every time there's a situation with black people in regards to quote unquote black on black crime, they always bring up MLK. And when I say quote unquote black on black crime, I'm just saying that because we're not necessarily black. That's not our race. Black is not a race. That's why I say quote unquote. But yeah, man, like, that's what it's about. That's what it's about.
And they are being released on a rolling basis by the National Archives. There are still thousands of pages yet to be released, so much more to come.
So yeah, that's it on that. You know, I'm glad that you guys are continuing to support the page, the channel, so on and so forth. I thank you guys for your viewership, and I hope you all have a blessed day, blessed evening, and a blessed night. Thank you. Shalom.